morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
It's a Friday morning, so you're welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde.
It's a rainy Friday here in Abuja. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogu Yusuf.
Yeah, it's also raining cats and dogs on the political scene, I tell you. So it's a similar scenario right there, as a matter of fact.
And then are you sure it's raining or pouring?
Oh, well, I guess it pours and not rains, doesn't it? So quite interesting what we see playing itself out in the polity. Of course, you'll kind of pay some sort of attention, even if you were not. You may just have stumbled upon it, because do you know that those who actually don't pay active attention to what plays out politically, because they feel they don't want to clog their mindsets with all sorts that will just probably not put them in good stead as to the mental health, as it were, almost like the heart health for those football fans who can't stand their teams lose, and doctors tell them, you better watch it. All those palpitations could be really tricky. So, but at the same time, in the same equation, you can't ignore what's happening with the economy, as it does, of course, whilst you probably may not pay that much of attention to what may be happening in the polity, which to a large extent, if not to a great extent, affects how the economy either tanks or progresses. So it's something out there, really.
Yeah, you know, it's the reason we raise these issues, so that people can not only be aware, but can be informed. I was having a conversation.
Making informed decisions.
Thank you. So it's not just about awareness.
Yeah.
It's about you being duly informed about those things, so that you can make what we call informed decisions, you know. So, because at the end of the day, these decisions affect the entire spectrum of your daily lives. You talked about mental health. That's not the only thing that it affects, but it's a significant chunk of it. If you suddenly find your heart racing a little more than normal, hey, it could well be the same issues that are, you know, around you. So it's not just about the rhetorics that you hear now. It's about the actions that you expect to be taken. Now, we have a decision to make, and everyone who is anyone is saying, look, 2023 election is a game changer and all of that.
We always say that, no?
Exactly. I thought I was the only one. Every election has been a game changer. We say the same thing.
And most times, rather than people to go out there and do the change, they play football in their homes and not make the change. And sometimes, have you ever found that when you leave this climb, if you find yourself somewhere else, it feels strange? Because if care is not taken, you wouldn't even know that, oh my goodness, I've been traumatized from where I'm coming from. So you just think you're a fish out of water. But it's as a result of how we do what we do here. But of course, we can always be better.
Absolutely. You know, so we have a decision to make, whichever part of the country that you're in. It's not just to be aware of what is happening. It's also to be informed about those things. So don't just be content with voting, as some people have said. Be interested in ensuring that you compel what you need done. Call out whoever it is that you need to be called out. Hey, we're all fixated on the president, that's fine, or presidency, that's fine. But more than that, who is your governor? Who is going to be your member of the House of Representatives? Who is going to be the local government chairman, the one closest to you? That one you can knock on his door. What do you think, Maukwe?
Well, I think we should go to the papers, gentlemen. That's what I think. But yes, you're right, Tayo. Indeed, people need to be more concerned about what is happening at their local levels. Yes, we understand that there's been a fixation about the federal government, maybe largely because it gets the biggest chunk from the federal accounts allocation, and because of the, almost over-centralized system which we operate, that tends to take attention away from what is happening at the state level and what, more importantly, should be happening at the local government level. We say it almost on a daily basis now. It's like a sing-song that local governments are non-functional. But should it be that way? Shouldn't we be raising a lot of questions as to why our local governments are the way they are? If we threw half the energy we threw into, ensuring that things are done at the federal level, or the attention we pay to it in terms of whether things get done or not at the federal level, if we threw half that intention into making sure that our local governments function, I'm sure that, we certainly will be able to witness some progress in different parts of our lives. I do believe that, we need to do better by ensuring that our local government system works, ensuring that there's autonomy for local government. So perhaps we also need to be asking the National Assembly. We still have a few months to go. The National Assembly hasn't closed. We know that they undertook this process of the Constitution review. We did not have a lot of hopes when it started, but it looks like they took themselves seriously enough to have gotten into the stage where it is. So is it possible for them, when they come back from recess, that they prioritize the Constitution amendment, because that particular part on local government autonomy seems to be gaining some traction, that even though it has not passed before in previous administrations, and even the local government, or the, State House of Assembly, voted against local government autonomy, a lot of them are realizing the mistake now and are beginning to turn around to vote for local government autonomy. That should bring some life back to our local government. When that happens, perhaps we will not be where we are. So we will urge them to prioritize that, so that if that one thing can sail through, at least we'll have, something really huge to remember. It will not be, for me, it will not be PIB, it will not be it will not be the Electoral Act 2022. These are important documents, yes, but let local government autonomy sail through and let life come back to our local government. So yes, I think we're on track, but yes, I think, gentlemen, it's time to go to the papers. Back to you.
Absolutely. So we'll take a moment and we'll do that when we return. Welcome back. We'll start with Nigerian Tribune this morning and look at the lead story. Nigeria's debt hits 41.6 trillion naira, says DMO. That's the Debt Management Office. Just letting you take that in for a bit.
I don't. How much is in our reserves? Well, I'm waiting for the economists to tell us.
Well, look at this. World Bank survey, because that's the rider you see right there. World Bank survey rates Nigeria 195 out of 197 countries in debt to GDP growth. So we are at the bottom of the ladder. Oh yeah. And then there's also politics beneath that lead story. Wiki replies, "Are you? Children made you chairman. We'll also teach you a lesson." So there's a back and forth concerning that one there. That's the Tribune today.
Look at the front page of the Guardian newspaper, saying pretty much the same thing this morning as the Nigerian Tribune. And what you have, it's like a council following that one, like some kind of conversation, if you like. Stop borrowing. Experts warn FG as debt profile hits 41.6 trillion naira. It definitely is something worrisome, wouldn't you say? I got the riders as well. Government owing 85% of Nigeria's debt, says DMO. So it's not the individuals owing, government is owing a lot more. Says, okay, customs boss faults NNPC's subsidy payment claims. Says 36 million liters daily petrol consumption unaccounted for. 36 million liters.
Unaccounted for.
Daily petrol consumption unaccounted for. Well, so we're having a conversation between the customs boss and the NNPC boss now? Okay. Teriba, debt financing is policy option. Turn debt assets to cash flow. Stop borrowing. Who's saying that? Find the details on the inside pages. Increase revenue, block leakages to get out of trouble, Bismarck suggests. Well, the leakages are quite huge.
Those investigations, are they usually ever conclusive? even if they were to start the investigation as to some of those who went on, which they say is unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Did they ever get conclusive? And what do we take actions to ensure that this things don't happen again?
The ones that have been investigated, the Auditor General's reports, yearly Auditor General's reports, it's there. What have we done about it?
Little do we know that the Accountant General was going to be asking questions too.
Borrowing is burden if it won't increase future cash flows. Owo insists 2023 fiscal plan is self-contradictory. Don't make Nigerians perpetual losers. Kuriwa knocks government over non-provision of capital project in 2023 budget. The details of that you'll find on the inside pages. Nigeria now has 20 million out-of-school children, says UNESCO. Find the details of that one on page 3. And the big story, Nigerian economy gasps for breath as bandits, thieves, saboteurs lay siege. The details you find on the inside pages. That's the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Wow, what a story. That one at the bottom there, the Nigerian economy gasps for breath as bandit, thieves, saboteurs lay siege. It seems that, every criminal, every type of criminal wants their own pie and they want it through the citizens and they don't want them to have any peace. But, those who say that their mother will not sleep, they too will have no peace. Let us have this one from the Vanguard newspapers for you. And they have this. PDP crisis worsens as Wike Bode George insists Ayu quits. Say what you like, it won't save you. Wike blasts Ayu. He must go before campaigns begin. That's from Bode George. Yes, he was in River State yesterday. The latest in a long line of people invited to come and commission projects in River State. Says party chair must come from South. Asking Ayu others to resign won't solve problem. That's from Babatokwe. Party risks losing Southwest. That's according to a source. Be wary of APC's antics. PDP tasks Nigerians. So you'll find all of the details on page 5 for you, focusing very heavily on politics this morning. But also equally important on the front page of the Vanguard is the story on security. Using Kano jets, military wipes out 63 terrorists in Sambisa forests and Kaduna. So you find details on page 9 of the paper. Just what I was saying about those who say that their mother will have no rest. They too will know no peace. At the top of the nameplate, you have a number of other stories here. Why Nigeria is in debt, as according to the Director General of the Debt Management Office. Capital importation falls 2.4% to $1.53 billion in second quarter of 2022. On the corner here, call it climate change, or what you will. It's a story on the environment, but also affecting lives and property. Narrow escape for Taraba residents as heavy flood sweeps through community. The story is on page 14. You have your Mr. and Mrs. It's on the front page. If you look to the back, there's Vanguard Sports. Nigeria football needs surgery. That's from Peterside. You might want to see what that story is at Peterside, yeah, former Nigerian international and also a great sports analyst. You'll find the details on page, at the back page. He's thrown his hat into the ring to run for president of the NFF. You also see this. Serena sails into third round, beats Contervate. So that story is also there for you. She says she might be resigning. It's a very big probability. Is it certain yet, Chamberlain? Do we have confirmation that she is? Because some people are saying, oh, she's leaving it a bit vague. And she says, oh, it's okay that it is vague because you never know. What do you think?
As a smart one, don't put under any pressure. So I think he performs better when some of them, when they're not under pressure, when it's just a little more relaxed. Some pressure, but a little more relaxed. So you tend to just see the results. And who knows, is Nigerian football too gasping for breath? I guess the elections, those who are contending will always say a thing or two about it. Look at Leadership Friday this morning. They also focus largely on politics because their lead story reads, will help PDP to lose in 2023 if Ayu does not quit. Ascribe to Wike. Ayu must go before campaign starts. Buddy George is sitting tight because of 1.4 billion naira
14 billion
in PDP coffers. 14 billion, I beg your pardon, in PDP coffers. Also ascribed to Wiki right there. PDP holds NEC meeting next week. Says party supreme above individuals. Yeah, you heard that. 2023, North won't vote based on sentiments ascribed to Northern elders. So, there you go. That's Leadership Friday today.
Look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, speaking in the same breath as the previous paper. PDP crisis worsens as Wike insists on Ayu's resignation. You are an ingrate. We will teach you a lesson. Rivers Governor. Ayu is a mole, as ascribed to Adoke. We must unite to defeat APC. That's McAfee. Wike's outburst uncalled for, but ... That's ascribed to Faggot. Story is on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Right above that one, under the nameplate, 2023, Nigeria enters critical stages this month. Ascribed to INEC. Debt burden, genuine concern affecting national development. That is something worrisome. That's coming from the Debt Management Office. Find the details of that. Several other stories on the front page, on the inside pages this morning. Okay.
Look at Nigerian News Direct for you, and they have this one: PDP crisis, Wike, Bode George battle Ayu over children jibe. Children jibe is in parentheses there, you can see it. Your comments show you're immature, that PDP chieftain tells embattled chair, we will help PDP lose election, Wike threatens. So that is also on the front page. A lot of the papers focusing on this back and forth within the PDP. You also see there, Shell enters $1 billion LNG sales agreement with Zim. The story is somewhere inside the paper. 1.9 billion, beg your pardon, that's 11 actually. 11.9 billion naira stolen from Kwara Treasury between 2011 to 2019. That's according to a forensic audit report. You might want to know just what that story is about. Did they commission one? When did they publish it? You might want to see details somewhere inside the paper. Will the forensic report be made open to the public? You don't know. But I'm sure that those who were at the helm of affairs from between 2011 to 2019 will certainly want to take cognizance of that story. And then there will also be questions as to what the state government will want to do about it. You have a number of other stories at the bottom, which I'll leave you to do yourself. Let's leave it there for Nigerian News Direct.
Yeah, well, that also ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning. We're back in a moment to focus on a theme today, so do stay with us.
As Senate President, you were sacked by Obasanjo in his administration 2 times. Arrogance cannot take you to anywhere. Now we are saying that you don't want the party to win election. We will help you. These children you say we are, these boys we are, that brought you from nothing. Nothing. I said from nothing. We brought you. You say you founded this party, but you left the party. You left the party in 2007. You founded a company. You left the company. People stood and brought out the company to what it is today. You have no moral right to still come and claim that you funded that party at that company. You left with your shares. Other shareholders have come in. I will do what my conscience tells me to do and what is right for our people. If not, it's only in Nigeria that you come and see people talk. A man that was impeached, a man that was sacked, a man that ran away from the party is now coming to say, I was the founding member of the party. Then you run away. Then those who struggle to stay, to make sure that the prodigal father came now see that the children had built the house. He asked the children, come on, people should go away. I was the builder of this house. Look at it.
It is an antithesis and against the norm and culture of our party that our presidential candidate, our national chairman, and the chairman of the Board of Trustees will come from one section of the country. Party members from the South are already feeling alienated. PDP is not a private company. Before we start the presidential campaign at the end of this month, the national chairman must go to the South. This is all Governor Wike is saying. And as a life member of the Board of Trustees of our party, I support this position 100%. Statutorily, it is the national chairman who hands over the party's flag to our presidential candidate. How will party members of the South feel when they see that at all political rallies, Southerners have no public political representation? This constitutes a fundamental flaw and lack of inclusiveness, which will be diametrically opposed to the original thinking of the founding fathers of our party. Maybe if IU had remained perpetual in the party, he would have learned the ropes much better. Governor Wike is not saying anything out of anger. He's only telling the truth to power. That is why the national chairmanship must come to the South now as a matter of urgency. We're not begging for it. We demand it because it is our right.
Well, I'm sure you've already heard it in the papers, but that's basically what we're going to be talking about this morning. Is the crisis in the PDP, I mean, if you want to term it a crisis, because some people will say, oh no, our party is not in crisis, but is the bickering, is the lack of unity within the PDP getting worse as a result of these statements? Because only a few weeks ago, we saw the back and forth between Nigeria and London, party leaders traveling all the way to London to have talks. We also saw the presidential candidate of the PDP meeting the governor of Rivers State in London for the very first time since the reconciliation talk started. What do these statements mean for the party? Do they have the capacity to derail reconciliation, if indeed they are underway? We have two gentlemen in the studio to discuss this with us this morning. Kasim Afebua is former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, and we also have Fabio Oladimeji, who's the Director of Support Group and Events Technical Committee, Atiku for President 2023. Gentlemen, welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much.
Quite a lot to digest from that particular statement, which the governor of Rivers State made. Well, he certainly wasn't taken lightly. He is being referred to as children or as a child by the chairman of the party, who had earlier made reference to how children, are trying to, let's say, scatter the party, as the case might be. Well, he's had his own comeback to the national chairman of the party. But people are wondering this back and forth. Is it now between the current governor of Rivers State and the national chairman, or is this between the current governor and the presidential candidate of the PDP? Let me ask you first, Dimeji.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. As far as I know, I don't think there's any problem between Governor Wike and Atiku Abubakar. All of this matter has to do with the party. And that's why you can now see the dimension it's taking. From the inception, we knew this. There was no issue between Governor Wike. Okay, define it for me. I challenge anybody to define it for me. What would have been the issue? You went into a contest. There was a winner. There was the other side. And we saw the process that followed. So what could have been Atiku's wrongdoing in that? What could have been Governor Wike's wrongdoing in all of that for Atiku to be having issues with him, or for Wike to be having issues with? But of course, everything is about politics. So you can't run away from that. And at every election cycle, a lot of things happen like that, because all of this is about interest. And I think Governor Wike is trying to protect the interests of Rivers State, as he has always been saying. And I think largely, the interest of Nigerians too should be paramount. And I think that's what Atiku is doing, ensuring that whatever it is from any side, as a leader of the party, everybody is brought to the table, and then they met, just like you said.
Well, you say he doesn't have any problem with the presidential candidate of your party.
Yes, I don't think so.
And you know, well, some people will disagree, excuse me, in terms of how the process went. Yes, it was open and transparent. We saw that, but he felt had done by the let's say the statement of one of the contestants, Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto. Anyway, that went down. We saw eventually that after the primaries, there was an immediate meeting between the presidential candidates. And maybe he understood that there was going to be a winner and there was going to be a loser. And he already said on the campaign grounds that he was going to cooperate with whoever won in the primaries. But then we also saw much later the statement made by the national chairman. We heard much later, we were not there, but we heard much later that when they went to visit the current governor of Sokoto State, that he called him the hero. And it would seem that from then on, a lot of people have said, one, he already said he was going to step down if a northern candidate should emerge. And then some people also thought that he wasn't fit to remain the chairman based on the comments which he made, which people thought did not exactly provide a level playing field for all contestants within the party.
Okay, first, let me tell you that of all of this processes, all of these things you have reeled out, something is bigger, which is the national interest of the party, interest of Nigeria, beyond all of this. And I can tell you, Governor Wike, that's why I said there's no problem, because Governor Wike and Atiku are talking. So it may not be made public, but they're talking. Yes, there are concerns. They have been addressed, and I'm sure they will be addressed frontally.
Indeed, they're talking more. How do talks like this, open confrontation like this with the party's national chairman, I don't want to say whose head Governor Wike is asking for, but whose resignation, we understand, is a part of the conditions he's asking for him to be able to fully be a part
Mark, well, let me tell you
of this conversation.
So let me tell
How do statements like this affect the reconciliation process?
Let me tell you something. I am one of those who believe that Ayu should not resign now for certain reasons. Of course, it would be, immoral for him to stay in part, to stay as the national chairman if Atiku, if we have a northern president. We don't have northern president yet. And for me, I am one of those who believe that Ayu should not be pushed out now for so many reasons. Number one, this guy was elected to serve a 4-year term. Number two, there will be a lot of further crisis, a constitutional crisis, if Ayu is forced out. And why did I say this? Because in 2007, Yar'Adua was the president of the party. We have a national chairman, Ahmadu Ali, who was equally from the north. And that process went seamless. And when it was time, there was a convention, another chairman came on board. Another thing is, why are we rushing now? These guys have only spent 6 months or 7 months in the office. In the next 6 months, all of this will be over after the election. By the grace of God, PDP will produce the president. So anybody who comes in still have another 3 years to spend because it's 4-year mandate. So why is the rush? Why do we need to do that? So I want us to just to avoid any constitutional crisis in PDP because IU has the right to go to court to challenge it. So we don't need that now going into election. We have to be united going to this election. And that's why you've not heard an article made any comment on all of this. And that is strategic enough. And as a leader who understands what is it. Again, I've not heard Governor Wike come out and say, these are my demands publicly. So all of these have to be properly aggregated and looked into and resolved.
Are you denying that is not one of the things he's asking for?
What, that the chairman should go?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been seeing it all over. I've not heard Governor Wike come to the public and say, Chairman, well, that's what I wanted. Neither any of his supporters.
What difference does that make?
Honestly, I don't know.
Whether you hear it publicly,
yes.
I mean, it doesn't make a difference. If he comes out to say, you know, would that make a difference?
No, Governor Wike you can choose to be definite about it. And people will know this is what this man wants.
Okay.
For me, I'll be definite about it and say, this is it. National chairman came out and said, I don't think I have to resign. Let Governor Wike be definite about his demands, and Nigerians should know.
Well, it would seem that there was a ray of hope when the presidential candidate, I mean, that's when he was elected, when the national chairman emerged, and he had the overwhelming support of governors at the convention. They really wanted him to emerge. So when this has now gone down, you have to ask what really went wrong, if there was history to their feud before now, or it is this PDP primaries that has brought about this bad blood. But let me ask you, Mr. Figwa, you have been observing matters. You had made you know, a number of statements as well, even before now. But there was hope when we saw the presidential candidate of the PDP travel all the way to London to meet. Initially, it was denied that he went to London to meet Governor Wike, but eventually we saw the pictures that he did meet with him, and it would seem that, you know, they were making progress. But with statements like this, you have to ask, are they really making progress?
Well, thank you, Mark. Well, I think about barely 2 weeks ago, you brought two of us here to discuss this issue of PDP. And I remember I said there are problems within PDP. He didn't believe that. He said there are no problems. It's a family issue. You see, when you build anything on injustice, it will continue to haunt you. And I keep saying this, but people are not taking me serious. You see, when I started the battle for the removal of Uche Secondus because of financial impropriety, and I took that case to EFCC, they were calling me names. Now they brought in IU as a soft landing to railroad the party on the path of growth and development. That was why you saw those governors rally around IU. Because we thought that with an IU, there will be some semblance of seriousness in party issues, party affairs. But IU has since become just like his predecessor. You see, the point is, what is happening is deriving inspiration from IU's own statement. IU said, if a presidential candidate emerges, he didn't say president, a presidential candidate from the north emerges, he will leave so that it will to give room for balancing and what have you. And that was in Arise TV where he made that statement. So what the IU must go, advocates are saying is that just honor your statement, just as a matter of honor. Why do people always like to run away from the truth? You use your mouth to say it. Nobody forced you. You were on national television. Okay, please go now. You now have a national, a candidate from the northern part of the country, even though someone like me never supported that, and for that reason, I tendered my resignation from PDP. I left, in my ward. But the point is, when you say anything, you see, political parties are very important. Statements of leaders are also very important because it is the recruitment platform for the leadership of the country. When you are unable to situate or even put your party together, organize it in such a way that you can get reasonable and credible leadership, then it takes away so much from the kind of product that will come out from that process. It is not just about outcomes or the processes leading to the outcome. If Ayu had made a statement that he was going to resign, if nobody forced him, he was not under any spell, not under any compulsion, he wasn't pressurized to say that statement. He went on TV to gladiate himself as new national chairman of PDP, and he made those statements. One would think that that is a statement of a nationalist who wants the party to grow. At any rate, even the utterances coming out from him now, they are unnecessary, needless utterances. It shows that, when you say some people are children and all that, it shows that even that office, he has already demeaned it for me, because you were a defector. Are you defected, left PDP and joined APC? Those children you were talking about helped to position the party such that even the candidate himself, who was also a defector to APC, had to return to PDP and contested in 2019. So the point is, Nigerian politics is becoming colorless. It's just like a scramble. And the players are becoming like famished baboons, let loose into banana plantation. They are grabbing anything outside and all of that. So, and Ayu, for example, for me, if you want to be a man of honor, you should just call it quits and allow the southern part of the country, to choose a chairman.
Can I ask you why it would seem that Governor Wike has been the only one who has been on this matter? We've heard, as the Major rightly pointed out, we haven't heard him come out to say in public that this is what he wants, that he requires the resignation of the national chairman of the party. We've only been hearing it, and the papers have been reporting it, that sources say that part of the conditions which he requires for him to fully work with the presidential candidate of the party will be for the national chairman of the party to resign, and that position be ceded to a southern candidate. But if indeed it is true, there will be questions as to why he is the only one asking for this.
I think, Mark, but you are very much more, conversant with the issues than this question you asked me, because even the media here will tell you, except they don't want to own up. The PDP is in two factions, as we speak. One faction is the Wike faction. The other faction is the Ayu faction. And if you look at the interplay of forces, you will see that in the Kano declaration, you don't see those who are sympathetic towards Wike. Makinde, Wike, Otom, Ikweazu, Ugwai. You don't see them. So it's not just about Wike. And don't forget that Wike has supporters across the country because he contested for the presidential ticket. So that's an aspect. You are receiving a man like Shekarau, you expect the Wike and the Makinde and all of that to be there. You don't see them. And you see that these people are maintaining some kind of pregnant silence. You're not hearing them talk. Okay, the meeting you're talking about in London, this person, some of them were there. So it's just, if you are looking at Wike, you are narrowing that to Wike, I think you will be missing the point. But the larger interest or the point that should be made is that Wike is making a claim. Is that claim right? It's the same thing with what I said, that it wasn't the turn of the North and PDP to produce the candidate. Now the candidate has emerged. Should the chairman remain in the North? Should the chairman board of trustees remain in the North? Chief Bodejo made a very valid point that when they will be handling, the flag of the party to the candidate, it's the national chairman that will be doing it. That to be a northern candidate, giving a northern presidential candidate. You see, the point is, PDP is stronger in the South than in the North. 9 governors in the South, 5 in the North. So you can't play with PDP in the South. If you look at the 2019 election results, 70% of the votes Atiku got was from Southeast, South, and Southwest. So if you tie with that and you think that it's just about Wike, you'll be digging your political grave. But I will be happy for that political grave to be dug very wide open so that they can fall into it, because it is the turn of the South to produce president for Nigeria.
You already stated your position way before now.
Yeah.
Let me flip this to my colleagues in Lagos. Surely.
Thank you, Mark. Well, Mr. Fabi, does the presidential candidates of the party think that there is anything to worry about, given all that is playing out now?
Leader of the party, he looks at every shade of the issues. He looks at every shade, of the matters. Where there are issues, he moves in and he settles it. That's why you saw him taking a trip to London to meet Governor Wike. That settles that. Let me quickly correct what my brother just said. One, there's no faction in PDP. I don't know where that is coming from. As somebody who has been in the party for a long time, when there are some things that determines that that a party is factionalized. And then I think Governor Wike and the team will not even agree with him that there's a faction in PDP. Yes, there are concerns, there are issues, but not faction, because I don't see them having a national chairman of the party as we speak. I don't see them having any executive, ESCO executives in the state or wherever. So I don't know where that is coming from. And second, let me tell you, Chamberlain, I think Ayu was honorable enough to come on here and said, I will leave whenever a candidate emerges or whenever we produce a president. The issue here is that why do you have to force him? There are processes. PDP has a penchant for stopping their chairman. I can tell you from day one, Gimade was forced out of government of the party midway. Adrogbe, the same thing. Who came after him? I think Ahmadu Ali came. Ahmadu Ali was able to complete his term because of his relationship with the president and because he was playing the ball of Obasanjo at that time. Look at all the people that have followed him. They were removed in between and unceremoniously, up to the last one, which was Secondus. We cannot, as a party, continue to do this. My brother that is wishing PDP falls into a ditch, that will never happen. You will stay for a long time and it will never happen. Let's just leave it at that. Atiku is concerned, just like every other person is concerned. He's running an election and he understands the fact that you have to go into an election, even when you have it so sure for you. You understand the fact that you need to go into that election united. And that's why you see me has maintained that leadership status, talking to everyone who has to be spoken to. And then I'm very sure that by the grace of God, all this will be resolved and the party will come out stronger, because the interest is bigger than the party interest and national interest is bigger than all of these parochial individual interests. I don't want to give it to anybody that you are bigger. Atiku is not bigger than the party. Neither is Governor Wike bigger than the party or anybody for that matter. So it's time to tell them that enough is enough. And I'm calling on Governor Wike, enough is enough. Otom, enough is enough. Ugbai, enough is enough. Sheyi Makinde, enough is enough. What's the name of Abia, Governor Ukpazu? Enough is enough. And every other person that are, on both sides, enough is enough. We need to move in. We need to sit down and move into this election. So not things like my brother is saying here, we even deter the party from doing the right thing. We are going into this election, and we are going as a united family, and we are going to win this election.
Incidentally, these persons who you've mentioned are people who are usually seen together, who Mr. Fegwa says are on the other side. So doesn't that clearly say that there is a faction, even though you say there's none?
Chamberlain, I just read out what determines a faction in a party. I would have loved to see the national chairman of this group saying I'm the national chairman of Wike faction. There's no faction in PDP. There are concerns. Yes. Are there concerns? Yes. Are there one or two issues? Yes. But there's no faction in PDP. And I will not stand here and tell you that there's a faction. We don't have a faction in PDP. The problem here is that, let me tell you something, and it's going to be well managed. The APC has bigger headache, and they're really managing it. Unfortunately, our own leaders are the ones taking this to the press every time. And like my brother too, who will come here and come and find the member of this court, he's not a member of PDP. Why can't we let PDP leave and stay?
Yeah, but
let's face that
I think
problem.
what a lot of them have said. Yeah,
I told you are leader. You are not leaderless.
Yeah, just hang on a minute. What a lot of them have said is because those party chairmen who you reeled out saying that they were forced out of office, isn't the scenario completely different from this one? Because they are saying now, and the party chairman currently hasn't denied it, saying he was the one who voluntarily said that if a presidential candidate emerges from the north and the party asks me to step down, I will gladly do it. I will do everything. I will sacrifice to make sure that happens. Isn't that what he said? And if he says that, can't he be honorable to say, well, that is what indeed I said, as opposed to having this vote fast and saying something completely different?
Chamberlain, that granted. And he has never come out to say, I am not going to do that. What he said was that I was brought in on a mandate of 4-year term. So there are processes to doing this. Now, let's do this quick analogy. If Ayu resigns today, the acting chairman will be from the north. That's according to the constitution of the party, which will be the deputy national chairman north. Now we have election in less than 7 months. Then we are going to go into that election with an acting national chairman. So, and at the end of the day, there's no way you can run away from confusion in all of this, because if you force this guy out, he has the right to go and challenge whatever you have done, which is very wrong. And so, the question is, why the rush?
Well,
why can't we wait for us to win this election?
But he's the one who said, if a presidential candidate emerges, and one has emerged.
Yes.
People will say, look, does it mean that these politicians say one thing and then they do something else? How do we know the PDP will not tell us one thing today and do something else tomorrow?
The PDP has never done. The PDP has always been on the side of the people, and you can make your comparison. So as far as I know, IU should be left alone to lead this party to victory.
Okay.
Immediately after the candidate of the PDP produces the candidate of the party, the president-elect, it can go. So why I still keep repeating this. We don't have to go through this route at this time.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Fegwa on this
as a united family.
Yes, Mr. Fegwa, I'm sure you want to say a thing or two about what Mr. Oladimeji has said, but speak to this as well. The argument that he is making about, not having an acting president and all, on the one hand. On the other hand is the issue of process. I mean, you have, looked at some of these issues over and over again, I'm sure. The issue of process. My challenge, for one, has been that the PDP, as the leading opposition, should actually have been playing the role of that opposition party, putting the government of the day on its toes, but with its own internal wranglings, it seems it's not even able to focus on the real core functions of playing an opposition role. So how significant is that for you as we build up to the 2023 elections?
Well, thank you very much. Just to quickly tell Oladimeji that I have been to the two parties, PDP, APC, and as a political player, I understand the undercurrents of politics very well. I don't wait at the backyard to be told what took place. I take part in a lot of meetings. I know what is happening in PDP, and I know that even after the emergence of Governor Okowa as VP candidate, you tried to call NWC meeting more than 4 times. He didn't see 5 people. So I know the issues. There are a lot of problems, and I'm happy that the problems will persist because of injustice. Injustice cannot produce justice. You must plant justice to reap justice. But when you plant injustice, you will continue to reap injustice. And that's the crisis we are facing. That is one. Talking about your question and about processes and all of that, you see, Iyorchia Ayu came in as chairman. He was heralded and applauded. But he alone made the point that if a president comes from the northern part, Iyorchia Ayu will resign in the interest of the party. Now, people should be honorable enough to do that. And when he wasn't forced, he was not pressurized, why is he refusing to leave? And you see, this idea of people thinking that, oh, there are no problems, if I'm you want to be, he's telling me that I'm not a member of PDP. I am not. I resigned on my own volition as a consequence of the outcome of the convention, for which I stood my ground that it shouldn't be the turn of the North. But having resigned, I am a partaker in the politics, of Nigeria. I am also involved as a voter who will also choose a candidate on election day. And I'm interested in who becomes the president of my country so that life could be better for me and my children. So I have a role to play, and that role is going to be the part of advocacy, interrogating processes in either of the parties, and drive at a conclusion that will help me to take a position on the election day. So whether PDP likes it or not, they have brought in home ant-reading faggots. They must be ready for the visit of lizards. Lizards will continue to dominate that particular headquarters of the party. There's so much corruption. There's no accountability. Governor Wike was making reference to 40 billion naira and all that. I'm also hearing that there are some 1 billion naira that was not accounted for, that was given by Atiku to Yochayu. All manners of things are playing out all over the place. You see, when people are unable to account or show leadership accountability, and they want to produce a president for the larger interest of Nigerians, it becomes a problem.
For somebody who is not in the PDP, who has resigned his membership of the PDP, you seem to know quite a bit of the internal.
Not just a bit, I know so much, so much.
So you're so very much interested in the happenings of the PDP.
No, I have to be interested in the same thing in APC. I know I'm not a member of APC. I know so much of what is happening in APC.
Which means you want them to succeed. You really desire for them to succeed.
No. You see, you have to keep tab on happenings around you, even as an analyst, as a commentator, and all of that. You need to, so that some persons will not come and blindfold you or tell you stories that don't exist anywhere. The point is, they are running away from the issues. Mokwe, let people learn to speak truth to power. That's the truth. Because if you are unable to interrogate issues and you speak the truth to power, at the end of the day, you produce a president for Nigeria that will tell us lies. They will give us statistics that don't exist. They will take statistics from the mass and all of that. My point is, for the ordinary person out there, for the voter, we need to also help them in deepening narrative so that it will guide their informed
all of
decisions.
This, a lot of people will say, are unimportant to the voters.
Yeah.
I mean, the issues, yes, it's true that, the PDP is struggling politically to, come together. But I'm sure that voters are well informed enough to know that the issues that are important to them are things like electricity, security, who's going to end the current ASU strike, etc. These are the issues that are important.
Okay, if you are unable to resolve the internal crisis within your party, you are unable to dialogue, to constructively engage, collectively bargain for the interests of the party ab initio, how will you sit down on the table to discuss ASU strike or resolve the ASU strike? You see, how do you respect agreements? How do you respect agreements? If a chairman of a party can say that he will resign at a given time, if certain scenarios happen, and those scenarios did actually happen, then he's now reneging and trying to be clever by half. How do you do that? How do you reconcile? What is the bane of ASU strike? That government is unable to respect the agreement they reached in 2009.
Well, I know that you're quite close to the presidential candidate of the PDP. How is he taking the statements of Governor Wike that which he made yesterday concerning the national chairman of the party?
His Excellency Atiku Abubakar is more understand most of these dynamics. PDP has gone into issues, that problem that is far bigger than this one. And it was at the fulcrum of it. And
far bigger than this?
We've had, yes. PDP has gone through a lot of crises.
He defected now.
PDP has gone through a lot. Didn't you defect? Why are you talking about
I said Atiku defected.
Didn't you defect? You are talking about people defecting. It doesn't matter. You defected from PDP to APC and came back to PDP and left. And you know why you left? It's not because Southern, you have your own party and narrow interests that made you leave. All of us, it's known to everybody, Mr. Kazim. Let's just leave this matter.
No, say it, please.
It's known to everybody. You have your reason, we know it, but it's not what you are claiming on the national television. We know ourselves. So let's leave the matter, and we don't need to even probe that. Let's just leave it.
Please probe.
The truth of the matter is that Atiku understands most of these dynamics. And that's why you see that he has not made any statement either against Wike or against anyone in this party. What he has been doing both in private and public is to ensure that he's not tired. He will get Wike back on track. He will get Wike back on track. They talk, they relate. Leave most of these things. You say, yeah, Governor Wike is hot, but I think we understand that. In politics, Atiku has been hot several times. He never went out of the way to bring the party down. You know?
It's a leadership weakness.
So
actually.
we don't.
You admit that he is hurt. Why is he hurt?
A lot of things happen in politics that you get hurt. Yeah, it can be hurt. He said it was hurt.
You are assuming that, I mean, we know.
It's a leadership.
Since you say that there is nothing that should be between, there should be nothing that should constitute a wedge between them. Yes. Why do you think that Governor Wike is hurt?
No, he's been saying it. I mean, a lot of people, even all of his colleagues have. You see, Governor Tom came up and said, Wike is hot. He's really, really hot. He's this and that. The process, challenging some of the processes that the party went through. So it means that these are closer, the closest guys to him. They are with him. So when they talk,
do you see it as reason enough for him to be hurt?
All the things that his colleagues are saying.
Yes.
It's politics.
He has
an interest.
Because that would also determine...
He has an interest.
Yes.
All right?
I'm asking you this. If you see it as reason enough for him to be hurt, or you just think this is politics, he should get with it?
But it's about what is hurting about that. Like I'm saying the same thing with you. It's about what is hurting him. Mm. And for me, I think what's really hurting, what he wanted was this issue of national chairman. Have you heard him talk about any other thing? The national chairman should go, it has to come to the south, and it has to be...
But you say he hasn't been categorical about it.
That's what people are, that's what we see on the
if that is what it would take to pacify it, why is it so difficult? Especially since the national chairman himself already made that personal commitment.
But that is the point. It's about the party.
That's what I'm saying. Why is it so difficult to get the national chairman to resign if that will bring 5 governors?
Party will decide.
5 governors
party will decide. It won't be at a call of a governor. Party brought a Yochayu to that office, including Governor Wike and all others, including myself. So I was a delegate. We voted to bring him there. The party brought him there. It's a party thing. It's a party decision. It's a party process, not a call of individual.
So
when somebody talks about injustice, there's no injustice anywhere. We're talking about the process here.
No, this is in spite of the fact that the national chairman himself said it by himself that he would resign if another...
Then set the process in motion, because even if he resigns, you still need to organize a convention to bring another person. Do we have that time? Why do I leave it?
Let him resign.
We're talking about process.
No, let him resign.
We're talking about process. He doesn't have to resign. We're talking about process here.
It's not honorable. They are not honorable.
We have 7 months. We have 7 months into election, and you are talking about chairman resigning.
But the presidential candidate has
the campaigns. We're in September already, gentlemen. The campaigns start towards the end of this month. I think September 20th. 28th
flag off, yes.
Okay, is when it's going to be flagged up. Do you think that this problem will be resolved before the 28th of September? Because your party, the PDP, is yet to constitute its campaign team.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're on that right now. So it will be resolved. Don't worry. It will be resolved.
Okay, well, some people say there are no issues. Some people say there are issues. But at the end of the day, what you hear...
It will not be resolved.
It will not be resolved. Gentlemen, we have to thank you
so many problems are coming.
What is at stake? No problem.
So much.
That has always been your wish.
So much.
We have to go now, gentlemen.
I'm fasting, I'm praying.
I'm the only one who is fasting, so we are not praying. Your wish was that people
pray for
Gentlemen, gentlemen, may I ask you...
And in your presence, Atiku will still be president.
Can we be decorous, please? Can we be decorous? We have to go. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. Kasim Afegbua is former spokesman, PDP Presidential Campaign Council, and Fabi Oladimeji is the Director Support Group and Events Technical Committee, Atiku for President 2023. Thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Early this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll take a break at this point, and we'll be back to sink our teeth into... It will be still more politics, but this time on a broader basis. So do stay tuned. If the political party that you support hasn't been mentioned, they're coming up right after now. Please stay with us.
Democracy and development to deliberate on how adequate security can be enforced in the run-up to the 2023 general elections. And as expected, experts from the Independent National Electoral Commission, civil society organizations, and representatives of security agencies are in attendance. The series of security challenges across the country comes to the fore as speakers highlight the role of government agencies and the need to redouble efforts towards making the 2023 election exercise a success.
We know that there are prevailing insecurity challenges pervading different parts of this country. I think at the CDD we often refer to it as multiple nodes of conflict, common causes, and we have written extensively on these challenges on the national level. These challenges are quite different because they are not the normal election violence you would think of when conceptualizing electoral security. We are, even as a country, dealing with election violence pre, during, and after elections are things we could do. We could mobilize all the security. For instance, we could come together as a community to deal with this issue and interest group.
The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, also lends his voice to the call for adequate security and announces the schedule for the activities leading to the election.
In the next 19 days, that is on the 20th of September 2022, the Commission will publish the final list of candidates for national elections, presidential candidates and their running mates, senatorial candidates, and candidates for federal constituencies, that is House of Representatives, as provided by Section 32, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022. This will be followed on 4th October 2022 by the publication of the final list of candidates for state elections, governorship and state houses of assembly elections.
Ahead of the September 28th commencement of campaigns, INEC is advising politicians to steer clear of issues that can heat up the polity and worsen the security situation in the country.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, yes, we're expecting those 4 persons, those gentlemen, but we're hoping that all of them can make it, because at the moment we do have Mr. Shina Fagbinro Byron, who is a former presidential candidate himself. He's a supporter of Labour Party's Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party. Sitting right beside him is Mr. Fuad Oki, who is an APC chieftain. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming out today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Good morning, Aya.
Good to see you both again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, we'll introduce, I guess, in Abuja soon, but let me start with you, Mr. Byron. Well, looking at what is playing out in the polity, there is indeed so much dynamics, even though they tell you, look, it's still quite some months down the line before they get into proper contestation and see who's closer to breasting the tape. But we know that by the end of this month, the campaign will start. So Nigerians will start looking to see, as they market themselves, telling us where should who or what or Nigerians pitch their tent. So from what you've seen, why do you think that what is it that the Labour Party's presidential candidate brings to the table that could give him a chance?
Well, thank you very much for having me on the studio. And I just want to mention that unlike the 2019 election, this particular election is a marathon. It's not a sprint. The candidates will still have time to declare who they are, what they are, by their speeches or their silence. We will get to know exactly who they are. Some have not been able to be clear as to their agenda. Others have. But going back to Labour now, the main thing about Labour Party, and particularly Peter Obi, is that he is the difference that we want. If you saw the last toing and froing between Kazim and Fabi, yes, you'd see that it's not very well with PDP. It never was, and that's why they lost elections. APC has been in power for 8 years, and clearly if Nigerians' reward system were to be the kind of reward system that rewards performance, nobody will vote APC again. At least you'll give them time to rest. PDP, on the other hand, they appear not to have listened, neither have they learned. And then again, you look at the relationship between APC and PDP, and you wonder what the difference is. So for me and for many Nigerians, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. If Nigerians really want a change, a step change into the future, it's clear that Peter Obi has demonstrated the kind of capacity, the kind of difference. As a matter of fact, the first thing he did by excusing himself from the PDP at that time was in demonstration of the fact that, look, we can't be doing politics business as usual. He left that party and that scenario because of the monetization, because of the bullying, that was happening at PDP at that time. So, and then again, we're entering we're progressing into the 21st century. This is 2023. This is not Nigeria of 1919. We have a younger generation, a huge population who have suffered, who have been excluded, who have been deprived, who have been abused. I recall one person described them as, was it jobless youth or a very derogatory term. Meanwhile, everything that has brought glory to this country, entertainment, sports, literature, has been brought about, science, fintech, has been brought about by youth.
So you think the Labour Party candidate has a brighter chance of them all?
Absolutely. It has the brightest chance.
Right. Well, Mr. Oki, the thing about ruling parties is that they could either be overconfident or they might just be a little tricky where they could just slip up and make a mistake in terms of all of this. But your party, I know you say they equally have a very good chance. But in the context of what Mr. Byron has said, how does that weigh against all of that?
Well, I want to start by reminding you in this studio my analogy about the pretenders, the contenders, the contestants, and the candidates. And I would really want to wait until the 28th or after the 20th of September to begin to see who the candidates will be. What we presently have today, it's tweaking and hype. And as usual, I would not want to dwell.
Isn't that what politicians do? They hype things.
Listen, we go back to that same issue. Do we still have pretenders on the top? I think so. When are we likely to see contenders and candidates? Let the campaign start.
Who do you think these pretenders are?
Let the campaign start. We will see who the pretender was and who the candidates who want to contest are.
Sounds like you have some aces up your sleeves. But before we even go further, there's something that Mr. Byron began with that I would like you to speak to. For you, what is different this time around? When we were having our own opening sequence, we said there are some things that we hear all too often every time election build-ups are going on. But this time around, there are those who believe that things are markedly different from previous election cycles. For you, what is the most significant difference that would, plus or minus, make a significant impact in the results?
Adopted technology.
Beavers. How so?
We will not be able to really see that until around December, January, when Nigerians will really be in tune, wanting to go to the polls. One thing I'm sure of, it's this. Today, Nigerians are beginning to get that confidence that their votes will count, and those votes should and will indeed count. Now, I talked about hype. You recall a couple of months back when the continuous voters registration was on stream, and you see people gravitating towards one angle or one area, shouting, we want to register, we're not allowed to register, we're this. At the end of the exercise, I was saddened. Why? In Lagos State, with all the hypes, the number of those who fully completed their registration process, to me, was dismal. I was expecting in Lagos we'll have maybe 2 million registration going by the hype. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, what do we have? So today you see people saying we're this, we're that, we're ready. For me, I want to wait until the whistle is blown. And it is then, I'll begin to look at what really the issues are. Today, you will see a presidential candidate go this way. Tomorrow, you will see the same candidate go that way. And all you see is hype. All you see is hype.
Well, Mr. Byron has been in the contest before. So perhaps speak to that, speak to us about that before the campaign starts and when it does start. So what is it that may likely be the key determining factor in this case here?
Well, there are pre-campaign activities, and then there are during campaign activities. And what you are seeing is pre-campaign activities, and throughout the elections there will always be hype. You see, going to have meetings with certain people is a hype. Describing your candidate as a particular fellow is a hype. Hype is such a general term that it could mean anything. But the truth of the matter is that candidates are looking for visibility. Granted, there are some candidates who have more name recognition and visibility than others, right? But there are a number of things that are going to happen. The question you asked was, what is the difference that, take for the APC, which my brother represents. Is APC coming to save Nigeria from APC? It's a question of the offer. Is the offer going to change during the campaign? Nigerians need to ask themselves questions. How do you describe someone who does the same thing in the same way and expects a change? The only thing that the APC is bringing to the table is just a new candidate, a different candidate brought before. But the candidate happens to be the leader of the party. Now, nobody has issues with the individuals. It is the policy of that party, the conduct of that party, the manner in which the party has governed Nigeria that has led us to where we are. How do you extricate the leader of the party from the policies of the party? Those are the questions that Nigerians need to ask.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, Chief, okay, if I understand what he's saying, right, pretenders or contenders, when the whistle is blown, they'll get into the field and the fray. And when that happens, Nigerians already know the APC. They've seen what they've done before. They know what they can do.
Okay.
They've seen what the PDP has done before. They know what they can do.
Okay.
So no matter how visible they are, with due respect to them, or they already have a mindset, some impression as to what they are about. So, and those parties are still peopled by the same people, for instance, the ruling party, peopled by the same people. Of course, some will leave, some will join, but largely the same people who were around when the party led. So what will be significantly different, whether they're a pretender or a contender?
Okay, again, My brother alluded to the process and possibly the activities and the timeline. And as we speak, we are in the process of pre-campaign. So I'm sure you would not expect me, to begin to say this is the reason or this is why, we must continue with what we have. Post September 28th, we'll tell Nigerians 1,001 reasons why Nigerians should stick with us. But, saying that before the 20th of September, number one, we'll be breaching the law. Number two, it's like letting the cat out of the bag before, contestation. One thing I'm sure of is this, and very clearly, it's that February 2023, I'm sure Nigerians will not be in a position to want to experiment. Very clearly. So it's not going to be about somebody who was in the saddle for 12 years, another is in the saddle, since the past 7 years, and therefore because of this, because of that, let us experiment. Take this to the bank. I'm sure Nigerians will not want to experiment.
Well, just to say this, we're not actually letting parties campaign yet. We're looking at some of the key factors that have been introduced into the system that may be determining
and I just
issues.
Told you so
just to highlight that.
Amongst other things, technology.
But then don't also forget that most of the issues affect a very huge population of young people, even though you said that there's also a dismal performance of some of them in Lagos. But you can't take away the fact that a significant, I think about 70% or thereabouts of them, according to INEC figures, all over the nation are the new set of voters. And even generally, a significant number of voters today are young people. And a good number of them feel hard done by so far.
Howdy, I'll wait until after the INEC aggregation of voters and do a segmentation by the way of demography to see exactly who the voters I am targeting are. Other than that we have by our population indices, XY number of people fall into this category or into that category, and will translate, into this sector, coming out. A lot of issues will determine, how you encourage Nigerians to come out to vote. One of that positive issue, it's the beavers, which is speaking to one thing. Please come out. Your voice, which is your vote, will count. It's key. And what I think we should all be working towards, it's first in encouraging Nigerians. Okay, let me share this with you. Between 1999 and 2019, between 63 and 67% of Nigerians don't come out to exercise their franchise. That's huge. So forget about the number of newly registered, voters or new registrants. Let us first, as a nation, concentrate on why that is so. You recall, I think sometime last year, I also made a statement here in this studio to Nigerians that when good people refuse to participate, that imbecile will take over the stage and make bad laws for good people to obey. That's where we are today. So how do we get that, cured or corrected? It's not by hyping. It's by, coming out with real issues.
Okay.
The issue, what I think will determine 2023 election, some of us are feeling it. Most Nigerians are feeling it. But then, by 2023, will they have an opportunity to interrogate those issues?
Well, that's one of the many questions to ask, and which is part of the reason that you're here. So many other things to raise, but let's go to Abuja. Maupe has someone with that. Maupe.
Indeed, gentlemen, thank you so much for throwing it this way. We are being joined, or we have right here in our studios with us, Mr. Mwazu Magaji, who is a former governorship aspirant on the platform of the PDP. Maybe I'm trying to elevate you.
Yeah.
But on the platform of the PDP. And he joins us here in our Abuja studios. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good morning to you all in Lagos out there.
Well, when the last time you came, we thought that, maybe I would not be introducing you as a candidate or former governorship aspirant of the PDP. Maybe there'll be another designation for you, maybe from the Labour Party. I'm not certain. But in recent times, we've seen a major shift in the politics of Kano.
Correct.
Indeed, when we saw what was happening in Kano in the run-up to the primaries, we saw Governor Ganduje making a last-ditch effort trying to unite members of the party, but that was not to be. We saw former Governor Shekarau defect from the APC and join the NNPP, a party that many thought was going to, or many think is going to be a disruptor in the Northwest and, possibly across the country. It's not clear now. But just last week, this week, I think, we saw the former governor, Shekarau, defect again from the NNPP to the PDP. And he had very strong words, or pretty strong reason from defecting from there to the PDP, as the case might be. And people are wondering, what exactly is playing out in Kano, and how is this going to affected the calculations of the PDP across the country, despite what is happening, within the PDP itself?
So thank you very much. As a matter of fact, I just came back from Kano yesterday from that very ceremony of receiving former Governor Ibrahim Shekarau. Kano has been a very hotbed of political activities. I mean, it has lived up to its billing, and it's living up to its billing. What I think has just happened is the realignment or readjustment of the political balance of Kano. We have a tripod in Kano, the person of Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, Abdullah Umar Ganduje in government, and Mala Ibrahim Shekarau as a former governor. But the tripod was basically displaced by Shekarau going to join Kwankwaso, leaving one of the leg basically without a political leader that can be seen from afar. And that makes Kano politics unstable. And I think it is that instability that led to the dynamics that resulted in Malay Shekarau realizing that he has no future in NNPP. Despite its promise, you mentioned that it looks like a disruptor, but eventually as the momentum builds, those dynamics of disruptive qualities begin to wane, and the limitations of that party begins to appear. And Shekarau, as a major stakeholder, not only in Kano, but nationally, if you recall, is one of the people that formed the APC merger. He represented ANPP in the merger. So he came back to PDP, and we're glad that he is back. We had a very robust ceremony. Kano has been a PDP state, by the way, since 1999. If you recall, we have produced governor under PDP twice, and we produced quite a number of senior elected officials at National Assembly. So it was the APC merger that led to Kano migrating to APC, including myself. If you recall, I left the APC for obvious reason, that the manifestation of the change and the promise that APC has put forward to the public, especially in a progressive state like Kano, has not really come to realization and manifested as a dividend of democracy. So some of us realized this early enough and left the party. And now we're looking at, generally speaking, if you look at the politics in Nigeria, what are our options? You rightly mentioned in the forum that just finished, there are four major platforms, and there are others that are coming up. But PDP, APC have ruled this country, and we've seen what they've done. Labour Party and NPP are disruptors, and they are coming up as change agents. However, like you rightly pointed out, the disruption capacity of NNPP is not very obvious, even in the Northwest where it is based. And Labour Party is coming up as a generational change agent. My concern with Labour, and like you rightly pointed out, you mentioned something about Labour, about me. I've actually had discussion with Labour regarding taking it to the Northwest and to Kano and actually aspiring for governorship. But when I sat down with the Labour people, I see some disconnect, especially in the North, between the principle that Labour Party represent for the middle class economy and the job creation and all the things Peter Obi is actually discussing. There is a major void in the North regarding the progressive tendency of that party. And therefore, I feel like it would be a hard sell for me, unfortunately, as a progressive politician from Kano. And I see the movement around Peter Obi, unfortunately, not expanding to the party. Now, this is very important for me to point out. I see Peter Obi as a transitional leader, and I hope, I just prayed he hasn't broken out with PDP. He could have been our vice president now, and in a very short while, he could have been the president from the East. But irrespective of that, Nigerians are looking up to the likes of Peter Obi, the likes of Konkosu, to be the next generation leaders. And therefore, now we are left with the two major political parties, PDP and APC. The challenge is APC going to be campaigning against APC, as you have heard in the discussion? How is APC going to campaign? And it's not about individuals. We've seen how individuals lead us to forming a government that all of a sudden, people we don't know, we've not seen, we've not assessed, come into power and take over this leadership and take it in a completely different direction. So we know Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but we know the APC as an institution has not delivered. We know Peter Obi, but the Labour Party do not have the personalities that we can vouch for to provide the necessary support. The same thing with Konkosu. But if you look at PDP, if you look at Atiku and the pedigree of PDP and the leadership structure and the spread, as well as the personalities, you can hold them accountable for what they have done before. And if you put them on a scale, what they have done before is way better than what APC have delivered to the country. So I am prepared to give PDP a second chance, having learned all the mistakes they have made, having also achieved the performance they have delivered, which we underrated at that time to have been a suboptimal performance. Today we are knowing that the country is being managed fairly well and stable, and we were protesting what we will have desired to see a major shift in the political and development goal of the Nigerian Federation. But we have experienced another change, APC, and we cannot go back to this trial and error like my elder statesman said, that we need to just leverage on the experience, on the pedigree of people we know, and transit this country. I am for a transitional leader. I think 2023 is a transitional period. The country has stagnated a lot of political actors and have not been able to develop their potential fully. And therefore, I see, like everywhere you listen to His Excellency Atiku, he will talk about grooming the young people and grooming the young leaders and bringing the economy back to life. And we all know he is a very, very good economic manager. He has managed enterprise, he has managed educational sector at private level, and he has successfully delivered results both in government as vice president. If you recall, he was chairman of the National Economic Council in the first time of Obasanjo.
I don't know if you're marketing your candidates already, but I mean, I know the campaigns will soon kickstart. Let's take a break at this point. We'll be back to examine just how, what is happening in Kano, because we know the people of the voters in Kano are quite sophisticated. They're not exactly loyal to any political party. It is about who they think can deliver that they vote for. So let us see how, your analysis of what is currently happening in Kano, could also be, let's say, a microcosm of what could be happening.
Northwestern Nigeria.
Exactly. That will be when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Well, we're still talking politics right here on Sunrise Daily, and we have with us in our studios here in Abuja, Mr. Muazu Magaji, former governorship aspirant of the PDP in Kano State. And you were just talking about what we said when we come back from the break. We're going to be talking about how Kano could be as a microcosm. I mean, the sophistication of the voters in Kano. You were talking about how Labour Party... First and foremost, is Labour Party able to gain ground in Ghana, considering the fact that the vice presidential candidate of the party is from that state?
So the vice president is a good family member of Kano, but he's from Kaduna State, from Zaria.
Oh, indeed.
But yes, but there is a candidate, a good friend of mine, Engineer Bashir Ishaq Bashir. I think he contested in PDM in the last election. He is now the Labour Party candidate. They're trying to put structure together. I think it's a transitional platform, like I said. Young people are plugging on, and I think it's going to pick some momentum. However, there is this dynamics of, like you rightly pointed out, the sophistication of Kano voters. There is something very important about Kano in the Northwest. And if you see what PDP has done, receiving Shekarau, they also did a Northwest caucus meeting. There is a reason for that. Kano represents the hub of the Northwest, and the APC merger jumped the Northwest. I need people to see this clearly. When the merger took place, the merger was between the Northwest geopolitical zone and the Southwest geopolitical zone as a dominant political blocks. And they came together and produced the presidency of Muhammadu Buhari. In the wisdom of APC today, they jumped Northwest and went to Northeast. I guess it's to challenge the base of the PDP candidate. However, that left a major void in APC. And states like Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, with such like over 10 million votes, are now up for grab. And that is why you see this scramble for the Northwest.
Are they really up for grabs? I mean, maybe what the APC is saying is, we think that we're solid enough in the Northwest to be able to go on. Let us see how we can get other regions into the fold.
That's the assumption, but I think it's a totally wrong assumption because of two reasons. One, the reason APC had a good showing in the Northwest was because of the candidate, the emotion of Muhammadu Buhari change agenda. And second, the reason they had governors was because the APC had allowed a process. Buhari, especially 2019, did not interfere so much. He had allowed the process to produce candidates that people are rallying around. The problem they will have today is, one, Buhari is not going to be the candidate, so they don't have a candidate, they don't have a presidential candidate, and they don't have a vice presidential candidate. But the second one is the promise of change did not manifest into positive result. And Kano is particularly passionate about President Buhari. And if you see the support base of Buhari from 2003 to 2015 was Kano. And now there is a huge disappointment, and add to that, there is the Ganduje factor in Kano.
Okay, so let me break this down. Now, the Ganduje factor is a big question. Correct. I mean, as to what is happening in Kano, I think that the jury is out, and I think the electorate to decide whether or not he's done well for them. But if we were to also look at the players at the subnational level, how much of a factor would you say the rating of a governor, for instance, would affect whether or not, voters will continue to sway that way? Do you think that they also see how their governors, whichever party they belong to, how they have performed to be able to say, well, we might not be satisfied with what is happening at the federal level, or we don't even see how that is concerning us, but the person whom we know representing the party in this state has done pretty well, and as such, we're going to be, our loyalties will be with this particular party. And this is across board.
Across board. So I think there are three factors here. One, if the governor has performed or not. Second, if the party has fulfilled its obligation and the promise. And the third one, if the people have plugged into the agenda of either the change or the candidate of the opposition is strong enough to advocate a change. In my view, APC governors will suffer from the holistic performance deficit of the party at the center.
Regardless of how they have performed.
Okay, let me take it, for example, Kaduna State. Rufai has done very well in Kaduna in terms of infrastructure, in terms of reforms in education and other sectors. But APC will struggle in Kaduna for two reasons. Because of this overview of Northwest issue I have earlier brought out, and the candidate he has brought has a lot of pockets of opposition. And that will result in people deciding the outcome of the election, not based on the performance of the sitting governor. However, it is the opposite. If the sitting governor is not favorable For example, if you come to Kano, you will say that the verdict the jury is yet to be out. But there are a lot of issues that people will consider. If you go to Kano, you will see infrastructure development on ground. But there are a lot of other social dynamics in Kano that people have not approved of Ganduje's administration, that people are now basically protesting. And that is what resulted in the momentum you see with Rabi Musa Kwankwaso NNPP. And that is what is now resulting in the momentum you are seeing in PDP. Literally, APC had two deficits in Kano: the holistic national performance deficit and the projection, the perception of the government of Abdullahi Umar Ganduje that allowed political actors to destroy his legacy. You know, the party is different from the government, but he allowed the party actors to destroy the base of the party, which doesn't exist. So the only thing you see when you look at Kano is the government of Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, not APC as a party. It does not exist literally.
Okay, let me send this back to Lagos. I do not know if the guests in our studio in Lagos will agree with you. Gentlemen.
All right, just before, okay, Mr. Barron, you have a response to what he said, so just quickly, let's hear you.
I think Mr. Mwazu was spot on.
On which one?
His analysis of Kano and what is going on in Kano. I mean, look, whatever we do in politics, at this stage in Nigeria, we must listen to the truth and accept what is going on. Kano State is the heart and the hub of progressivism in Nigeria since the days of Aminu Kano. You have the Yakasais there. You have a history where people actually interrogate who they vote for. I have never known, I am 63 years old, I have never known Kano to vote for anybody frivolously. They are deliberate in what they vote for, and they take their time. You see? So Mwazu is very, very correct. Having said that, and I'm so happy he said that because that is the analysis that Labour itself has done and is trying to respond to, and we will be responding to. What we have, I mean, he's spoken about our vice presidential candidate who comes from a very robust family, who has a pedigree of his own, who has demonstrated the kind of capacity and progressivism. Yes, he's from Katsina State, that is true. But Peter Obi himself holds Kano State as a priority. And that is why he is careful and committed. Yes, you have not, the structure that Labour is going to go into, right? We haven't seen them yet. He mentioned something that we know the candidates. All three major candidates, Asiwaju, Peter Obi, and Atiku, have, with none of them, there is no experimentation. You know what you're going to get.
Where do you put the NNPP candidate here?
Well, the NNPP candidate, you know, I think he has a couple of challenges. I think, you know, he's even far, far weaker in the South than whatever disadvantage you might think Peter Obi has in the North or Asiwaju has in the North.
We tried to get the representative on the program, yes, but we were unsuccessful.
But the truth of the matter is that the Labour Party is actually going into these elections looking at each region for the issues they have within each region, 6 of the regions.
Okay. Can your deputy vice president, does he have, because people think that he doesn't really have that pool in Kaduna, as it were.
Oh, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. Let me, in the first place, the secretary of the Northern Elders Forum is his brother. Because Dati Ahmed is quiet, and because he's not very loud and verbose the way he speaks, doesn't mean he's not very deeply rooted into the politics. This is a person who's been House of Reps and who's a senator, and whose also investments in education is vast, and whose presence, he's highly respected. It's the connection that people, all we need to do in Labour Party is to connect the dots of what is already existing.
How long will that take?
We say this is a marathon, not a sprint. We have 7 months to go.
Okay. But Mr. Key, we'll come to you soon.
September 28th, you will start knowing.
Yeah.
From September 20th, which is a couple of weeks, you'll start knowing.
Okay, we'll come to you soon, but I need to follow up with Mr. Mogaji. Now, those who are beginning to interrogate that narrative about the homogeneous North, they ask questions as to the role of the middle belt here. Now, given what is playing out in your party, they think that the party may have a huge hurdle to cross here, and they could stumble if they don't handle it well. Because if you look at the middle belt, in fact, they compare the figures of 2015 and 2019, they say those figures are quite telling. And today, the likes of Michael Abdul, Jerry Garner, Jonah Jang, Otom, and the rest of them who have certain structures in that area will be significant if your party doesn't handle that well. And these are persons who may not necessarily stand corrected, care who wins the presidency, but they your candidates in the states. And if your party doesn't pay attention to that, that could be where you could have a problem with the PDP.
Well, thank you very much. I think before I came on, I saw two of my colleagues, Prince and Fabi, had a very robust discussion on the conflict in the PDP. I would like to assure you that North Central is a PDP region, and it is so because of one very unique factor. It is a national party. It is not a regional party, and the North Central always wanted to align with a national agenda that do not tend to regionalize the government. If you take all the three major candidates, they all have affiliation with the regions that they come from, and historically or in terms of their past activities. Both Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Peter Obi and Rabi Musa Konkosu, the people view them as regional first and then national. But if you look at our candidate, Atiku Abubakar, is viewed first as a national person, before you even try to associate it with any region. And that is why the North Central is obviously a PDP region. And not only that, I am telling you that all the discussion I've had about the conflict in PDP will basically be resolved for two reasons. One, as you will have seen, that Wike's conflict is now not directly with our candidate, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar. They sat down, they discussed, they understand themselves. We know the value of Wike in South-South and in Port Harcourt. He is the political leader there and in Port Harcourt, and we have a vice president from the South-South who also have a very strong relationship with the Southeast, and those regions have been dominantly PDP. The central zone are asking for an adjustment of some agreements. I would like to point out that there are two major agreements here. The first one is the discussion around Wike's commitment to the party that he is going to support whoever emerges as the candidate. And that commitment he made publicly, and we praise him, we have allowed him, and he is working towards implementing those commitments. Okay. The other part is whether or not our chairman should step aside based on the fact that now we have a presidential candidate from the North. And I think the reason that discussion got soured is the manner in which it has been approached. I believe that this is a very simple discussion to resolve. I will urge our very good leader in the South-South, Wike, to first of all commit to his promise of supporting our candidate and publicly do so. And then, of course, the leader of the party, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, will convene a meeting with the BOT and call the national chairman to discuss the formula for success in our party. What is the formula for success? Why are you actually advocating to change a chairman if the candidate is comfortable with him to lead the campaign to success in 2023? Because we are all looking for success.
All right, Mr. Magaji.
In a matter of 6 months,
we hear you.
Campaign will be over, and then a new chairman can come on board.
Just a minute. Okay, well, we'll hear you quite but we need to also bring Mr. Oki in here. Well, you did speak to, perhaps in passing, about some figures which you thought were not exactly what you thought it was going to be. But if you look at the slide about this update by INEC concerning the completed registration as at 7 a.m. on Monday, 1st of August 2022. If you look at the distribution by age group, the youths 18 to 34 years, you see the figure there, 8,784,677. And then closely, which is quite a distance, coming second behind them, are those of the middle age who between 35 to 49 years old, 2,430,709. And then the elderly, 50 to 69, 956,017. And then 70 and above, 127,571. Now, this, you say you didn't see significant figures for the youths, but they here tower ahead of everybody else.
Chamberlain, this is the issue. We have new registrants, 8.7 million youths, right? 2019, the total number of registered voters was 84 million. Using the same, if you want to juxtapose what is registered now with what we have, it means again that the number of youths registered as voters will be in the region of 30-35%. What has become of that segment? That's what I'm trying to say. That what has become of that segment?
Yeah.
And you must also understand something. That age, the median, it's always idealistic in their approach. Hence what we see with the NSAS. My worry today is that will they be able to go the whole hog till February? I pray so. I honestly want to see them take the destiny of this country in their hands. That's my desire.
But what I mean, one of the if you look further at that particular demographic that Chamberlain quoted, you'll find that students make up 4.5 million.
I was going to that.
Okay.
I was going to that. You will also recall that each time we have election and you guys are on the field, a substantial percentage of that group will always be on the road or on the streets playing football. 1. 2, about 1/3 of them will ask you, what is in it for me to go and vote? Another 1/3 will be indifferent. That's my worry as an individual, that I hope we will find a way from September 28th with good voter education around this segment.
What motivation do you think we can give them? One of the major issues they have at this moment, for instance, ASU has been on strike for how many months? Generally, I think Mr. Fagbonro Baron spoke to that, largely disenchanted, population. So what motivation, as far as they are concerned, everything they're hearing is rhetorics, because they've heard it before. They spoke about the difference the BVAS is going to make. What motivation do they have to vote so we can turn down?
Exactly the motivation now, it's the technology. They are savvy technologically. Let them, you see, power, you don't serve it a la carte. Nowhere in the world, you must grab it. Today, Nigerians will talk about, past leaders, which we call heroes. My brother alluded to one, the Yakasais, Kano, Ahmadu Bello, the great Zik of Africa, the sage Obafemi Awolowo. But we refuse to understand something, that they took control of leadership at about the same age that we have, with this huge number. And I think what we all need to do as leaders, as parents, as politicians, it's, to have a very robust
Mr. Oki,
voter.
what
Just
they
a minute,
had,
sir. Just a minute, sir.
Just a quick one on what you just mentioned, the Awolowos, the Sikhs, and all of that. What advantage they had at the time was education. The same thing that they are being, those people in this age are being denied of.
Fine. Today, our children are at home doing nothing, unfortunately, born out of our irresponsibility. Now, the same children, the youth, should take advantage of this season by saying, you know what, we are going to retire. All of you. You've always known my position when it comes to national issues. It's not about party politics. It's about what is good for Nigeria. I will again plead with our youth to please, and for once, come out to exercise their franchise. Your votes will count. Please come out to do that.
All right. I imagine you'll be of the same view because we're about to close.
Absolutely. I totally agree with my brother there. The responsibility of all political parties now is to provide an offer, encourage people to come out and actually do the voting. We've said it, this is a marathon, so people shouldn't get tired too easily. A lot of people are going to wait. For the a lot of people are waiting for the campaigns to begin. But what has caused voter apathy in the past? What has caused voter apathy in the past is the fact that at some point in time, nobody knew the difference between who are being presented. What the Labour Party has provided now is an alternative, a credible alternative. And the full form of that credible alternative will manifest after February 28th.
All right, Mr. Shino Fagbero Byron, former presidential candidate himself, now throws his way behind the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi. We've also had Chief Ford, who is an APC chieftain. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you again.
Markwa?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. We're going to be asking our guest here closing comments in 30 seconds about how you think the elections are, or what you would like to see as an addition or play out in the 2023 elections.
Well, for me, to be honest with you, there is something that has appeared as a void, which is participatory democracy. I think this is very important. We're getting our structure now skewed the power to a very narrow space by a winner and everybody lose. I think we should adjust our structure to adopt a constitutional conference that Ekweme brought out, the vice presidential system. If we have that, the likes of Peter Obi, likes of Tinubu and Kwankwaso and Wike will all be Kashim, will all be vice president from the regions. And then they will chair the regional development commissions. And because the constitution right now has allowed 6 additional ministers, we need to adjust them so that all these big players, when you win a certain percentage majority in that region, then you come out and then become a vice president. That will become not a winner take all. That is now destructive and a lot of tension in the politics. And I think we should discuss more on this to get the formula that will become more participatory, more accommodating, so that when people will support base, Nigeria is very big, that loses election, they don't lose everything to contribute their quota to the country.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, some people also argue about what if you get substantial votes, but the votes are not from your region. There'll be questions on that.
When they have a discussion,
it's a rhetorical question.
So it's a participatory.
We're totally out of time, Mr. Magaji. I have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. He's a former governorship aspirant on the platform of the PDP in Kano State. Well, that's where we'll have to wrap up our discussions this beautiful Friday morning. I'm sure it's cool where you are. You settled with a cup of tea. I hope you're driving carefully if you're on the roads, or if you plan to drive, please do so carefully. We have a few meals. Can we still take them? I don't know. We see this one from Imai Song. We also see the one from Henry Okeke and also a tweet from Oshinawa Kingsley. Okay, well, Imai Song, let me quickly run through that, says, I fear that local government areas will not be autonomous given the powers governors already have. Even if LGA chairmen go to Abuja personally for their subventions, not a dime will be spent without the governor saying so. Heads of local government are mere errand boys of governors. So where is the autonomy? Autonomy of local governments will only be on paper. just like many other laws in Nigeria? Well, I sincerely hope not in my economy.
Well, Henry Okeke says the ability to resolve internal crisis as quick as possible is the best way to know a political party that is ready to win elections. Talking about the PDP there.
Well, Oshinowa Kingsley, very quickly, it'll be disastrous, he says, if Nigerians get it wrong in 2023. The next 4 years will determine the direction of growth or total collapse of this country. And on he goes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sending in your comments. I'm Mark Welbin, Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful weekend ahead.
And I am Chamberlain Osa. Goodbye.